All right, good afternoon. Good afternoon. There we go. Yes, welcome, welcome, welcome. Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions. This is our annual kickoff for 2023. We're glad you are here, and we want to welcome everybody here in this room in person and those who are joining us online. We are so glad you are here and so glad that you want to learn more about what's happening with FACS and the ways that we can help our planet and our community. I want to first thank, of course, Mount Vernon UU for hosting and just being wonderful, for allowing us to use this space today, and for being great partners with our organization. So my name is Joshua Long. I am the seminary intern at Rock Spring United Church of Christ in my final year at Wesley Theological Seminary. I graduate May 8th. I am looking forward to it. So I want to just lay a little bit of a spiritual grounding for us. And first, I want to start with a moment of silence. The climate activist that was killed in Georgia, Miguel Togoguita Pabez Tehran, I hope I didn't butcher that. But they died defending a forest from being developed. And I just want to take a moment of silence to remember all the climate activists, him and all the others who have lost their lives trying to save our planet. So we are gathered here out of love for the planet and all of humanity, and this is serious work. It's risky business. They are making oil and gas commercials, not just for a specific company like Shell, but they are trying to scare people into thinking we can't live without fossil fuels. I don't know if you've seen those on TV and whatnot. But I like what I saw in the Daily Show, what Wanda Sykes said. She said they are running ads because they are nervous. They know that the green initiatives are working and that renewable energy is here, it's now, and it's not going anywhere. So there's still so much to do. We are still in a crisis. We still need to meet our targets of 2030 and keeping warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And we still need to address the injustices of environmental racism and colonization. And we have to ensure there is a just transition going forward, that we don't leave anyone behind. So today we are here to acknowledge, to celebrate the wins, and to learn about the solutions to the climate crisis that are available to us now. This is hard work. This is emotional, physical, and mental, and spiritual work. And that's because we are interconnected. We are interconnected with all of creation. We all share the same common destiny as the rest of the planet. So let us mark this moment as sacred space. Please be in an attitude of prayer and meditation with me. When I breathe in peace. And when I breathe out love. Spirit of life, God of love and justice, we gather here on this day, first to give thanks. Give thanks for life, for the universe, for this earth, for the animals, the plants, trees, oceans, rocks, and our entire human family. We know you created out of love, that through love this world is sustained. So allow us to remember that as we consider all the solutions for taking on the climate crisis, the ecological issues of the day. We ask for blessings on all the activists, the change makers, healers, ministers, congregations, lay people, lay leaders, and especially the youth and young who have the most to lose. We pray for our nation as we consider the implementation of the climate bill passed last year, that we can make progress on this and it can be done in a just and equitable way. We pray for political leaders and social justice movements around the world, Brazil, Congo, Australia, Sweden, Marshall Islands, and every part of the globe, as we consider how we can face the climate crisis and create a more sustainable and equitable, just world. And finally, bless this event, bless this time here. Bless the speakers, bless our minds and our hearts as we consider all the ways that we need to move forward and create the world that we know that you intended. For all these things we give thanks in the name of all that is good and holy. Amen. So first, I want to invite up our first speaker, Jeremy Simons. Jeremy Simons focuses on advancing solutions to the climate crisis and protecting the health of all communities from toxic pollution. As principal at Simons Public Affairs, Jeremy puts his knowledge of the inner workings of the U.S. government and experience with advocacy campaigns to work on behalf of nonprofit coalitions, environmental justice organizations, philanthropic foundations, environmental groups, and universities. So I want to welcome Jeremy up here now.
Well, hello, everybody. What a great crowd. Thank you for coming out. Thanks for that. Good. Thanks for coming out on a Friday afternoon. Saw a couple really big bald eagles on the way up here, so hopefully that's a good sign. That was nice to see. So Andrea connected me to this event because I work, I'm a consultant. I've worked, well, you got in my bio, but I work as an advisor to the Environmental Protection Network, which is a group of EPA alumni. I don't know if there's any here besides myself. Always worth checking when you're in these in these environments. Who are retired or otherwise, they've left the agency, but give their time, volunteer their time to help build the capacity of communities to engage with the agency. Whether they're working on regulations or grants or other pieces. So it's an exciting group to work with of volunteers, and I love doing it. And I myself worked at EPA, but a long time ago. So this is just the perspective that Andrea asked me to give, kind of starting in the big picture and taking it down before you hear from the real experts about what you want to know in terms of some of the dollars and tax incentives and other pieces. And I'm happy to do that. But I don't, even though I'll be talking about these government programs, I don't have anything to do with them. So take that for what it is. Let's go to the first slide. But let's ground ourselves in that moment when the climate bill got passed. That's the kind of thing that I can tell you, having worked in Washington to pass climate legislation for too many years for me to actually count at this point. That does not happen without you and without many people like you all over this country. It is not a perfect bill, but it is a major accomplishment and certainly a major political accomplishment, as well as what we're going to be talking about, the real results on the ground. Think about it for just a minute. They could have spent the money that they had pulled together from various sources. They could have prioritized any issue. And there was a number of issues dealt with, a number of important issues in the bill. But the biggest focus of those resources were on climate change. That prioritization doesn't happen because of a poll. That happens because of intense interest of dedicated constituents that help educate and push members of Congress. So thank you for that historic day with Vice President Harris casting the deciding vote right there. Next slide, please. And in the nuance of climate change and targets and tracking other things, this slide here is just basically to say all these pieces that come down to small pieces of individual actions are not small at all because they all add up to big change. It is an enormous undertaking to change the trajectory of global and U.S. and local emissions from the direction that they were headed, which is up, 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 and putting it down, down, down. And what this bill does in its totality is it further bends the curve toward the goal that's immediately ahead of us, which is slashing emissions in half this decade. It doesn't get us all the way there, but it bends from the black line, which is where we were before the bill, to the range you see down below it, as much as 40% reductions. So we are well on our way. More to be done in all levels, by companies, by individuals, by state and local governments, and by Congress and the president, yet to be done. Next slide, please. This is the piece I'm going to talk about the least, and there's a lot of text up there, and so you're going to say, oh my gosh, what do I do with all this? Because I think one of our speakers is going to be talking more about the tax credits, which is probably the piece that is most immediately accessible. I did put, if you wanted to use your phones and grab the QR code, but you can also just Google this. I mean, it's basically the IRS. It's the IRS website that has specifically dedicated resource on the energy, the guidance on the various energy. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be the funnest read that you've ever done, but when you start getting into tax code, I'm sort of like, go to the source on this stuff, unless you've got a really good advisor on it. But it's everything from EVs to interestingly, people don't know energy audits, home energy audits, as well as energy efficiency in various appliances. So I think you'll be hearing more about that, and we can move on from there. There's about $369 billion overall. Most of it was in the tax credits. And there's also tax credits in the corporate side as well for green manufacturing and other pieces. What I'm going to focus on just a little bit deeper is the grant programs, which I'll tell you right now, the bottom line, we don't know a lot about how that money is going to flow. I'm kind of giving you the big picture, but the rules are still being developed for the most part, so I don't have the answers. There's a couple here that are out the door and are open for application, but most of it is still pending. There's a couple of big ones. The biggest one is this new program at EPA. And when I say new, I mean new. I mean, EPA's never done anything like this before. It's called the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. It's $27 billion originally the concept was a green bank. It's various financing mechanisms, largely intended, about $15 billion earmarked towards low-income and disadvantaged communities, and there's a bunch of different cross-sections on that. I'm going to pause because I have more on that later on. There's another set of money in terms of the environmental justice community block grants. That's the one that's actually furthest along and getting out the door. It's $3 billion across the country for that. Pollution monitoring is another area, a couple $100 million there. That's an area that EPA more traditionally has done work, so it's really boosting up the grant resources to communities and tribes. And the final one is a $5 billion program. It's completely new, something I'm particularly excited about, and even wrote a paper on a couple years ago before Congress picked this idea up. But it's the idea that states, tribes, local governments should be given incentives and funding to plan for how to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and how to actually take steps to turn those plans into realities. Basically, it's how EPA historically does business on everything else. A federalist system, cooperative federalism, where the government provides goals and it provides grants and funding, but states and local governments are ultimately the key to implementing and enforcing and moving that. And it's really the first time Congress has said, hey, we believe in that kind of a system here. We have shared goals. We're going to provide some resources. States, work with us. And I think that's going to be really important for Virginia and for other states around the country if Virginia decides to participate. Next. The crowd just turned sour on me. For those of you who are online, which I appreciate, and I'm not going there. The Green Bank. All right, there's a lot of text here, and some probably hard for you all to read, but I'm turning my body because I put it here so I could read it. So this is the Green Bank model. This is complicated from I know you want to know when are the dollars, where are they going to go to? This program, it's going to take a long time before we know the answers to that. And here's why. As I said, EPA hasn't done this program before. That's one piece. But again, this money is intended to especially go to areas that traditionally have a hard time accessing financing for clean energy programs. If you do it fast, then it's kind of hard to do it different. So I don't know exactly how they're going to do it, but they're in a process right now that by next month they have their first deadline under the rule, which is to start issuing grants. My guess is, and this isn't inside information, this is just thinking through if I were at EPA, my guess is that they will start by issuing grants, not to actually get money flowing that gets down to putting investments in rooftop solar and other things, but to grants to the ecosystem, if you will, of supporting, that needs to be out there, of organizations ready to support, take that money, ready to hold it accountable and other pieces. So I think it'll be stepwise. We'll see how they do it. They have 2 years, really to the end of next year, to get all their money out the door. But when they push it out the door, they'll be giving it to nonprofits that themselves will likely be the ones that are actually creating the grant opportunities, the loan opportunities as a bank, right, potentially. So financial mechanisms in different parts. So, here in Virginia, you might expect, there are different theories on how that, and proposals, how that might work, but there may be, some sort of a green bank coalition. Some of you all actually in the counties, you know far more about this than others. But there's different ways that money will trickle. But it's just not something you can go put an application in right now. $7 billion of that money is specifically in a program that mostly will go to rooftop solar. A lot of the additional funding can be used more broadly to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and other air pollution. So a lot to be developed, and EPA smartly went out and got stakeholder comment on that. That closed recently. EPN and others put in our comments on what they might do on it, and that's what they're churning through right now. Next slide, please. The environmental justice block grants, $3 billion. This is an exciting new area, and it is the area where the first money grant applications have been invited. The first $100 million of that was a White House announcement recently. The deadline for this is April 10th. April 10th. So I put a QR code there on this. Again, you can, aim your camera and probably get to it, but you can also just, Google search this stuff as well. EPA Environmental Justice Block Grants program. There are two programs. This is the first $100 million, and there are two programs, neither of which I am intimately familiar with, but they are accepting proposals on. The first one is called the Environmental Justice Collaborative Problem-Solving Program. So you can see now why I needed the cheat sheet up here. And we're EPA, we're good at coming up with clever, we're not anymore. They're good at coming up with clever acronyms like AGCPS. Just rolls off the tongue. And you actually have to add the words Cooperative Agreement Program after that. So it's EJCPS Cooperative Agreement Program. All right. $30 million in funding directly to community-based nonprofit organizations and partnerships that they create. In total, the agency anticipates about 50 awards of $500,000 and 30 awards of $150,000. The fine print here is probably the most interesting of it to use, like, what's it for? So I'm going to spend a moment here. Eligible organizations working, this is all just quote directly from them, address local environmental and/or public health issues in their communities, particularly building collaborative partnerships with other stakeholders, local businesses and industry, local government, medical service providers, academia, et cetera, to develop solutions at the local level. So that's that first pot. And if we go to the second, next slide. Next slide, please. Thanks. That's okay. The second program is called the Environmental Justice Government to Government, EJG2G program. That's $70 million. $20 million will be for local government with for local governments. There are other pots of money as well, but it's probably most interesting to some of the folks here. 70 projects of up to $1 million each for a 3-year project. And these are to support and to create model state activities that lead to measurable environmental or public health results in communities disproportionately burdened by environmental harms and risk. That's what that's for. So again, this is the first $100 million of $3 billion that EPA has over the next few years that it can distribute. But it's the first one out the door. And when Andrea asked me to do this, I say we won't know anything about any of the projects. I was glad to see that pop up. Next slide, please. In terms of the grant programs, this is just a resource that just came out of the White House. It is dense reading. I mean, this is, I say it's long reading. It's like 180 pages. There are a lot of different programs, but the program hopefully a good overview, and we'll go on to our next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. I want to welcome our next speaker, Tom Deo. Tom Deo is the inaugural Chief Executive Officer of the Montgomery County Green Bank. Tom brings his finance, operations, and mission-strong background to accelerate the Montgomery Green Bank's goal of bringing greater access to clean energy and energy efficiency financing for households, businesses, institutions in Montgomery County, Maryland. So again, just welcome Tom Dale.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Andrea, for inviting me. Appreciate it. So greetings from the Montgomery County Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions. We've been a participant in their gatherings really almost from my first beginning there a little over 5 years ago. They were one of the first ones to invite me out, and I've been meeting with them very regularly over the time. You'll gain from the fact that this is 5 years after I spoke to them, because when I spoke to them 5 years ago, the Green Bank had just been started, and we talked about theoretically what the Green Bank was about. I'll give you some of that theory so you understand what a Green Bank is, but I'll also express to you now that we've had success, and you can understand what success looks like as well. So thank you for the invite, and greetings from them. I'll also mention that another very important partner of ours, particularly on the faith side, is the Interfaith Power and Light. I think they operate regionally. Joelle Novi is a very important partner of ours. As you'll see as we get into some of the faith-based work we've done, she's been key to that. So I very much want to call out that relationship, and I know it's important for you all here too. All right, so with that, I'll walk through this. I'll start out by sort of talking about what a green bank is, and then I'll go into more specifics about what the Montgomery County Green Bank has been about. The green bank, this is the green bank structure. No checking, no savings, no CDs. Okay, that's not what we do. We're a financial intermediary. Basically, we sit underneath government in some way. It's different formats for different parties. Some are directly inside government, Connecticut Green Bank being of that nature. Some are alongside government. They're kind of quasi-public. We happen to be an independent 501c3 nonprofit, and I'll get into that. But somewhere you're connected to government because government's very important in terms of, one, sanctioning what you do, and two, potentially giving you resources. So that greenhouse gas reduction fund you heard about, so there's about $20 billion for green banks, so we're going to leave about $1 billion on the table for you all to take advantage. Well, we grabbed 19 of it. But anyway, the government's important. It creates the green bank. And then the relationship is the green bank's capital is always going to be a much more limited source of capital. We're not given the kind of resources to go out and do extremely amount of green bank lending. So the job of a green bank is to take the limited source of capital you have, find other financial partners in the marketplace, partner up with them, bring their private capital into the market. So now you've created a much more robust amount of capital to do clean energy financing. And over time, you find the openings, you help them get into it. After they get used to it, you move on to something else. They stay in there, and the capital sort of grows out of this program. So that's why the private investors are sort of sitting to the right. That's the relationship we build with those financial partners. And then we push that into the projects, clean energy projects, renewable energy, energy efficiency projects, generate the savings that come out of that. That savings helps pay off all of that financing. We're not a grantor. We're a financial entity. We invest. So we're not providing grant-related dollars. So the money has to come back. And so that savings that is generated by renewable energy, energy efficiency, supports the repayment of that while you get the power of the environmental benefit of having done that project earlier than later. That money comes back, it recycles, some goes to the private capital, some comes back to us. Ultimately, we then turn it back down. So that's the other level of leverage. You put it out, you get it back. You put it out, you get it back. You repeat that, sort of like wash, brush, whatever that thing is, repeat. All right, next slide. The areas we work in, we mostly work mostly with the built environment. So with residential homes, your heating, your air conditioning, your solar energy, geothermal, anything that's going on with the property. We are also beginning to work with EV chargers. On the right is commercial properties, very similar in nature, although you deal in a more complex structure because you're not dealing with a single party in a property. You're generally dealing with multiple properties, maybe a single property owner, but it's the same thing. It's dealing with the building envelope, tightening it up, improving the energy efficiency of the appliances, bringing on the renewables, anything to drive that energy consumption of the property down. So that's what the effort is. We're also now beginning to, hopefully our county will approve a charter change that allows us to invest in resilience in the sort of activity around the property as well as just on the property. Next slide. So what are the key banks to green bank? So one, clean energy financing is a specialized space. I've worked in financing all my life, mostly in the housing community development arena. It's very understood what you do with real estate financing. Clean energy financing is not that. It is not investing in the real estate. It is investing in real estate, but the activities that are happening inside the real estate as opposed to the actual building and the property and the development of it. And so you need to have specialized people that understand that as part of this because the marketplace doesn't understand it. The lenders don't understand it. They're kind of, okay, I get it, but I want all the collateral I would get if I were doing a first loan. No, that's not what you want. You don't need that. You need maybe the collateral for the investment of the activity you're doing, which is a less level of collateral, and it moves money faster. But you have to understand the mechanics of clean energy financing, which is you put in something of higher energy efficiency, it produces less energy draw. Less energy draw means you're paying less to the utility, which means now you have money in your pocket, you take money in your pocket, you pay off your loan, and that's how this sort of clean energy finance, but it's a complicated thing. And both the property owners don't know it, nor the end users know it, right? So you need to be an educator out there. I actually skipped to the third bullet. I'll come back. Equity capital. You can't do this without having capital on your balance sheet. If you're not a financial institution that can show you have a balance sheet worth partnering with, the financial institutions are not going to come and partner with you unless you actually have money to show I can cover my side of the debt, I can cover any losses that come into this, you're not going to move forward. So that's why, and the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund is key to that because it can bring that equity onto the balance sheet. But that's an important measure, and I'll get into how we got ours. But if you don't have that equity, you can get loan capital, and that's what a lot of folks will do, but loan capital means I take it in, and I got to pay it back, and therefore I can take less risk with it. Equity capital means I can take more risk because it's my own money. And then the last is market building. The market's out there. It doesn't know it's out there. You need to educate that market. You need to inform that market because they need to understand what you do, how you do it, what it is you're participating in, and how it is benefit to them. We've spent, last year we did 120 events where we did similar to this, to talk to any type of consumer, any type of business, because without that, there's no real market understanding. So over time, you'll get there, but that's a key component to it. All right, next. And then so how do we actually work? So that's the key to actually success. How do we work? First, you got to identify where the gap is in the market. We spent a good deal of time understanding that. Where is the consumers or the property owners are trying to go? They can't get there. What is it that's stumbling the financial institutions from participating? Once you understand that, you can begin to say, okay, now I get where the gap is. I understand what I need to fill. Now I got to come up with the financial structure in order to make that work. So you got to first identify the gap. Then you got to find the private partners out there to work with you. If you don't do that, you haven't done your one job, which is to leverage your money. So you got to find the financial partners, find a way that they participate, find the way that you participate with them. The green banks are risk takers, much more so than other capital is out there. That's the job of the green banks, is to take that risk. So you're going to have to save a little bit more on your balance sheet to cover that potential greater risk. But coming into it, we understand clean energy finance. We actually know that system works. That system will generate benefits. They don't understand that. We do. We don't know it. We know it's not that big a risk, but they don't. And so you have to be able to prepare for that. And then the other job is, the job of the green bank is also to make sure that the loans and other activities that come out are more affordable and or accessible, right? We heard equity come out of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. That's key to this, right? This isn't about one part of the world getting the benefits. It's about all parts of the world getting the benefits. So how do you make the products you have either accessible through them understanding it, through the terms you set up about it? So that's an important component. And then make the public money go further, faster. So we're an accelerator. Our job is to not let that Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund sit on the balance sheet forever, is to move it. And to move it means you got to be in the market and you got to be creating the deals and investing in the deals. And then the last is the ultimate goal. Green Bank's job is to go out of business. Our job is not to stay in the business and supplement other private capital and subsidize them. Our job is to make them comfortable with this. So ultimately, they got the whole world to get market capital. We don't. 20 billion seems like a big number, but it'll go like that, right? So that's the ultimate goal, is to make market transformation. All right. I put this one in here for John. It takes time. It does not happen overnight. Be patient. Be a participant in it, but know it takes 3 to 5 years to get up the hockey stick, okay? The one on the top left, that's Michigan. They were ahead of us. You can see the curve, 3 years of getting their product out, and then it goes up. The bottom one is Connecticut Green Bank on their homeowner residential. You see how that moves up. The one on the right, that's us. That's 4 years of our work. You can see you can see the first 2 years, we're getting ourselves ready, and then it moves. And just this last year, actually just this last 5 months, we've done $17 million of project financing. It took us, a year ago December, we were at $2.5 million. We're now at $30 million. So that's what happens. So, thank you. Next. All right, so now who are we? Now that I've told you what the green bank world is. So our structure is, we are chartered by Montgomery County. They passed legislation to create a green bank, and then we became that green bank. But while we have a charter, we are an independent 501c3. We got our own board of directors. We got 11 members. 2 of them are from the county, the Director of Finance and Environmental Protection. But outside of that, the other 9 are private board members. We self-regulate, we self-manage ourselves. Our relationship with the county is as a funding relationship. We report to the county. We go to the county. I'm talking to all the county members next week. But our job is to do the county's work, right? but we're not inside the county. And there's benefits to that, because when you're dealing with a financial partner, they want to know you can make quick decisions, you can stand behind your decisions, and you don't have a bureaucracy that you have to work through. And that's what the benefit of being an independent 501c3. The county's fabulous. They're a great partner, but the independence is a great one for us to be able to act quickly and motivate ourselves. We're Montgomery County. 57% of our county is non-Hispanic, non-white or Hispanic. So majority minority in a way, when you think of it that way, right? Take the money, we're to get 2 to 3 times that money back out in the marketplace. The county set very aggressive climate goals, 0% by 2035. That's our job, we're a tool in the toolbox to help the county get that goal. And then we have a very strong focus on our equity. Originally, 20% of our money needed to go to low, moderate income multifamily. Most recently, 20% of the money has to go into equity emphasis areas, which are disadvantaged investment communities that are predominantly low, moderate income and or race related places in the county that have historically not been invested in. Next. I won't go through all this, but this is how leverage works. So the county gave us $18 million initially. It didn't come in all at once. It came in over 3 years, which is why that hockey stick took a little while to get up there, because the money wasn't all there day one. So given the success we got, last year the county upped that ante. They actually passed a law that provides us 10% of the fuel energy tax each year. Let me repeat that. Each year. And this year that had amounted to $18.6 million. So in 1 year we've doubled our capital investment, and that also explains the hockey stick. So that, and then on our outreach, as I mentioned, we've done over 100 outreach activities over the last 3 years of getting out in the community, homeowners associations, condos, community groups like this, to just educate and inform, and that builds the market. And then what's going on down here just shows you different ways you do leverage. The blue is our capital. The blue is the other people's money. The green is our capital, I think, if I got the colors right. And in the left is the greatest level of leverage, which is we kind of stand behind loans that other people make, which is a good way, but it doesn't drive as much of the market penetration. So you start to move to the right, which is you start to bring your capital in coordination with other private capital, and therefore that creates a better leverage in the market for the end user, allows us to be a little bit more, create more flexibilities in the products, but less leverage. But then you get the leverage when you recycle. But you have to find what it is that works with the end users you have, and so you build products that work across that entire spectrum of different kinds of leverage. Next. And that's what a product mix looks like after 5 years. We've developed products that work for homeowners, both in the energy efficiency and the renewable energy sector. Just last year, we developed a program that made it more feasible for low, moderate income households to take solar out. We created an investment program that created a subsidy for them. That's not a grant. It's a way that they could pay us back, and a way that they could do it through a rental program. And then we have a whole slew of programs that we've developed for commercial properties. The county has a commercial PACE program. We're an administrator of it. We don't put our capital in. But then we created a variety of commercial loan products to supplant where PACE was not a very effective tool. So we created our own loan product to do that. This is where experimentation works. We created our first loan product on the left-end of that prior spectrum, where we were simply standing behind the lender in a guarantee position. You're playing catch there. You're not pitching, right? And so we wanted to pitch a little bit more. So we came in, we said, how about we put some of our capital into the deal? Like, oh, that's kind of cool. So we did that, and now we can pitch as well as catch. And so that's what, when we did it, we added debt. We put a small business program on the table. We launched that at the beginning of COVID. We came to the table and said, businesses are hurting. They can't get back in. Can we create a small business program that helps those businesses come back online, deal with energy efficiency? It did a little bit of that, but it helped us understand the small business world, and that's become a great product that we've done with another CDFI. And then we saw solar. And we said, okay, let's get into that, and we developed a commercial solar power purchase agreement. I'll get into that a little bit more, because one of our biggest clients for that are the faith-based groups over in Montgomery County. And then we have our tailored structured finance, which has actually proven to be our best, more recent tool. We just closed on a $5 million loan to do a 2.1 megawatt solar project on an affordable housing project that's on 56 buildings. It's the largest rooftop solar project on a multifamily property in the county. We're really excited about that. And then the last thing is community solar, which is a different way to provide solar. If you're in your home and you have trees, you can't do solar, you can buy into community solar as a subscriber, get the benefits of solar in your community at a lower price that you pay for the solar than you might others. We did that. We actually supported the development of one that supported low moderate income households, and 30% of the subscriptions go to those households. So that was our effort. And not on here, we just launched it this December, an EV charger program for affordable multifamily rental properties. We got a grant from GM that supports that. It was our chance to sort of demonstrate this. It's the chicken and egg, right? I don't have any demand for EV charging. Well, you don't have any EV chargers, so who's going to walk into your leasing office, right? So now I have EV chargers. Maybe I'll see I have a demand. So that's the program we launched. Next. So some examples of our work. Commercial solar power purchase agreement. It's a no out-of-pocket. Quickly, a third-party developer will build and install the system. They'll enter into a contract with the underlying facility, like this church here. The church has to pay nothing out of pocket. They simply enter into a contract that reduces their energy costs for the solar generated from the solar array, maybe 20% or less. We put our money into the solar financing so that you can get that no out-of-pocket, lower cost price. And for 20 years, your cost of electricity for that amount generated from that is going to be 20% or more less than what you would pay the utility. So your operating costs go down. A sister of yours, River Road Unitarian Universalist Church, we just did this. 142 kW system, generates about 150,000 kilowatt hours of electricity a year. They're going to save $10,000 a year in operating costs and reduce their environmental footprint by 2,000 metric tons. So there it is. Yeah. I forgot I had it on there. There we go. And we've done 5 churches to date. This is where Interfaith Power and Light was hugely important to us. They helped us with a webinar in June of 2021. We did a webinar with them. Within 4 months, we had 25 churches talking to us, faith-based institutions. We're now up to 40. We're doing 1 archdiocese, and we've closed on 5. You all are at a church, you have a board, it takes a little while to get it through, and that's sort of what happens. But they're all in the pipeline now, and they're all coming through. So it's been hugely successful in that regard. It's also been working, and we've done 3 affordable housing properties with it as well. Next. I'm sorry? Yes, it is. Yes. Yes, it's installed on the property. These are all on the roof. We've looked at doing it on like a carport over that. It's just the expense of the infrastructure outweighs the ability to make the economics work for the solar at this point. So we taking questions here? Should I take questions? It's fine? Okay, yes. We've been talking with John and for 3-4 years now.
It's a thrill and an adventure. We intend to pass an ordinance to authorize it, establish it this spring, and launch in the summer.
For the sake of our online people, if we can pass this around and talk into it, I think they could hear us better, maybe.
And I think I just have one more slide, just one more. Yeah, so, and then we do operate in the area of energy efficiency as well. As I mentioned, our commercial loan that we developed after the commercial PACE is what we've used. And this, we've done that a number of times. We've done it actually with some of the affordable condominiums in our community. That is some of Montgomery County's affordable housing sits in the condominium, so we've actually did a particular focus on that sector, and we've done 3 projects with them so far, all on the energy efficiency. And here we used Sandy Spring Bank was the lender on the transaction. They did the first loan, and then we came behind it and did a bridge loan of about $400,000 to the condominium because they didn't have all the resources available to close the deal. So this is where the ability to having money on your balance sheet allows you to do that. We were able to bring money right to the table, paired it up alongside where the Sandy Spring Bank could go. It was a $1.5 million project. That the Green Bank and Sandy Spring Bank was about 1.1 million of it. The contractor at the time said they would get $75,000 of savings from it. Then they got to 100,000, and right now the contractor's saying they're getting $125,000 a year savings. So a pretty good job for that condominium. I think that was my last slide. So we've got other. Yeah.
Could you, on a previous slide,
Yep.
you talked about you had CPACE at the top of the
Right.
list, and if I understood it correctly, you said that didn't really yield results. So what was it that you needed to add in the other programs that made it work?
Oh, great question. So those who don't know what commercial power CPACE is, basically the property owner takes out a loan to do the energy improvements, and then they pay it back through the property tax. So there's an assessment done on the property tax. That's the source of repayment. When you do that, you prime a first mortgage when you do that. And so not every lender is interested or willing to let that happen. And also size of the project matters, right? So you can't do less than $2 million is really uneconomical for that. And so that's why we developed our product. One, if the property owner didn't want to have that on their property tax, or they couldn't get it through the mortgage lender allowing it, or the loan product was too small. So that's why we came up with it.
Thank you. First of all, congratulations. This is music to our ears of all of us that are here. Thank you for it. I just have a question related to the low-income, population that we are trying to obviously bring into because they are going to benefit greatly, all because of the savings that are so meaningful to them. The question is, have you already have experience, or are you looking into the instances where typically low-income communities won't have the clean credit sheet that shows the reliability and whatnot, and these people have the heart in the right place, and we are trying to bring them into, yes? The size of the loans may not be of the millions because they are not going to put a solar panel, but they are going to establish improvements to the home to tide up, energy leaks and whatnot. What is your experience and what is the view of the Green Bank on this particular sector of the population? Thank you.
Hello? Oh, there we go. Okay. Great question. Thank you for that. It has been an interest and an important aspect of what our board has asked us to focus on is dealing with the equity and equitable access and low moderate income housing and low moderate income households. So first we've sort of focused in on the properties the multifamily properties that serve low moderate income households. And work with them as a way to try to help them elevate their energy efficiency, which then can drive down in towards how the residents that occupy them can get benefit from that. It reduces the pressure on rents to be increases by virtue of escalating operating costs. So that's one place we went first, was to get there. On the ownership, that's why we introduced our Access Solar, was to try to create benefits for that particular population. They need to be educated in a significant way. That's where we're spending a lot more of our attention, is they need to understand this. When you struggle to pay your bills, that's what you focus on. If you need to understand what other benefits you can at a cost, you have to understand how that works. And so we're spending a lot more time on that educational component of it to make sure they're aware of understanding, okay, if I do this improvement, how does that pay off for me as a homeowner, as a household? What benefits do I get out of that? And then the third level of that is, okay, if I decide that, where can I go for the resources in order to make that happen? And credit score and low moderate income households are not the same. They're not related. There's a lot of people with a lot of income that have bad credit scores, right? So it's about making sure that they're aware of the financing, that it's available to them. And to the extent that there's a necessary need for some flexibilities as you go down the credit score, that's the other place we're looking to provide it as well, right? So we work with a lot of third-party. As a green bank in Montgomery County, we can't be a direct lender to consumers. That's unique to maybe us, so you have to watch for that. So we work with partner credit unions in order to help them reach those markets, and we become the advocate for that. Yes?
Two questions. One, for the solar projects, what are you doing with the RECs? Are you retiring them or selling them? And then my other question is on affordable housing, are these rental units or owner-occupied? If owner-occupied, are you working with community land trusts?
Sure. So to the first, we, as a financial entity, use the RECs as part of the economics in order to create the value downstream, recognizing that that's not an environmentally sound approach, right? But from what our intent is to try to create the greatest economic benefit to the end users, and so the RECs become part of that economic equation. Now, we're Maryland, we're not D.C. The District of Columbia has a pretty good strength in those. We've got a okay strength, so it's not a significant number, but it is an important one. And if we don't monetize them, it makes it difficult to create the economic value. Now, we have had faith-based groups that we've talked to that's a conversation they have, right? Is that something we want or don't want? We can take that out of the equation if they feel like they don't. That changes the price that they would enter into with us in terms of the price per kilowatt hour. But that's a decision that can be made, right? It's not. But for us, we look at them as part of the economic equation. Could you repeat the second one?
Follow up on the RECs is, so your numbers aren't quite right because you're not really offsetting somebody else's taking your renewable energy and continuing to put out dirty power and taking your credits. So I know it's controversial and I understand, and we sold our RECs at our temple and I regret it now, but we didn't have a choice. But on the affordable housing one, are these rentals or owner-occupied? And if owner-occupied, are any of them community land trust owned?
I don't think we have any community land trusts in Montgomery County, but we do have a lot of nonprofits that create affordable housing using the low-income housing tax credits and the regulatory requirements of the low moderate income component of those properties, but we don't have any community land trusts that I'm aware of.
I'm going to run across here, and then we're going to move on.
Thank you. I'm guessing that there isn't a green bank in Prince William County. I'm wondering then how we might go about encouraging a green bank to be formed. That's my first question. And the second question is probably easier. I'm just curious if there's a leverage sweet spot that you've discovered, that graphic that you had where you were basically relying on private funding and only kind of backing it, and on the other end of it doing a lot of funding.
So I'm going to let John answer your first question on the Prince William question. As to the other, we're pretty much almost equal across all those buckets. We're finding more recently that given the influx of capital that we have, that we're playing a little bit more to the lower leverage side because in this high interest rate environment, our capital has more value in it in some ways to mitigate that higher interest rate requirement that the private capital is having. So in a way, we're using our capital in order to balance that current environment we're in.
Thank you for that question. The Fairfax County Green Bank will likely not be called that as it emerges, but rather following the state enabling legislation, we will pass an ordinance that establishes this clean energy financing entity. It's the intent of staff, and also we've heard from the Board of Supervisors that we understand it's a regional market and that there's no point in multiple people inventing similar wheels. So our goal is to launch this entity and allow for on-ramps, if you will, so that if other localities pass their own ordinances, they can join in and participate in a collaborative effort. And hopefully that is a way to expedite something rather than try to get all the people in a room and create something whole out of many.
Okay. Let's give a hand to Tom. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And I want to gauge just how much time. I think, Tom, you have to leave early. How much time do you have left, Tom? Or because we're going to invite 10, 15 minutes. Okay, so let's invite all our speakers up here. We're just going to have like a really quick. Want to do Meredith first? Let's do it. I like that idea. We got questions. Like it. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to invite Meredith Haynes up, and she is with the Citizens Climate Lobby, and Meredith has a PhD from the Housing University in Oceanography, and with members of the Fairfax chapter of CCL, Meredith has been doing outreach on the Inflation Reduction Act, at the same time making progress on electrifying her home in Vienna, and she just got back from the General Assembly. So really looking forward to hearing what she has to say.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Josh. Thank you to our hosts, and thank you to my team who helped put this talk together. And we started out in the summer, as soon as the Inflation Reduction Act was announced, to go tabling and say to people, have you heard the good news about climate? We're sending a thank you note to Congress because they passed a big climate bill, and people came in instead of just like not wanting to engage on climate. So that was exciting. We were able to say there are things in it you should know about that you can use in your own home and life. So I'm excited we get to go a little deeper here, but it's going to be super quick, and I'm happy we're going to have a chance to follow up. FACS will be able to give you the resources that I'm just fleetingly going past here, and we're talking about having a longer presentation, so we'll be able to hit on all the topics. So once again, we are no tax experts on our team, which, as you will see, would be helpful. If we go to the next slide, the Inflation Reduction Act, we see inflation reduction, actually, we're thinking emissions reduction, and we look at the next slide. Fortunately, we had a preview of it. US greenhouse gas emissions have been coming down, and that's largely as dirty coal has been replaced by cleaner fuels. Our president's target is 50% reduction by 2030, and that is the Paris target over there in the right-hand corner. With the policies already in place, we were going to continue on that progression of lower emissions, but the next slide, the Inflation Reduction Act in green is getting us to 40% reductions by 3 teams of modeling of the projected emissions. So yes, there are still a big 10% chunk that we need big programs and more work on, but let's talk some more about the pieces that we can do. The Inflation Reduction Act can save us money in our homes. So many pieces. The grid will be getting cleaner from the other investments that are happening, but our homes can also be getting cleaner. And there are significant funds in play here. For example, a typical solar installation, you might be saving between $7,000 and $10,000, a similar amount on those EVs that qualify. And I am already moving on. Good. The next slide is going to be a little dense and ugly, but to help you understand the mechanism that we've got here, the tax policy is the biggest piece of it. And on the left, some top points about the tax portion. What we love, there's $270 billion going into this, but that's also going to be resupplied if we're not meeting our targets. These tax credits will extend beyond 10 years. So what we love is the predictability that this money is around for 10 years for us to make plans to use. I have referenced some of the tax code there. It might be useful to come back to. I'm going to give you some of the language that you'll need to follow up in your own research. Now, the administration's desire to make this equitable means that there's a second mechanism of delivering these incentives, and that's through rebates. And they will go to the states and to tribes to administer, and they are only now getting delivered the money and the guidance, and none of that has come on to us yet. So it's going to be a little fuzzy here, but $186 million going to Virginia by this mechanism. What we love is, as part of this equity push, is that many of the appliances will be available at no cost for the lowest and middle income folks, so they can immediately be getting those benefits of lower bills, cleaner indoor air, and so forth. And terms you'll see, this is income-based, so area median income you'll see, but that also, there'll be rebates up to 150% of area median income, so presume that you might qualify until you determine that you don't. I definitely encourage you to investigate it. And even if you're at that higher end, it may only be 50% of the rebate numbers that you'll see coming up later that you'll qualify for, but could still be a chunk of money. And the acronyms that will appear on this rebate side of the research that you do, high efficiency electric home rebate, and homes, which we'll see again briefly. So in the next slide, just a reminder of all the side benefits that these investments in our home will get us. We'll no longer be little fossil fuel burning factories in our homes, and we get higher energy efficiency, lower costs on our energy use, cleaner air. And the next slide. What are you most interested in? Solar is up there, but geothermal is also available with 30% off the cost. Also, for the first time, standalone battery systems. Previously, they only qualified if they were part of a solar installation. Weatherization could be insulation, air sealing, ventilation. Exterior doors will qualify. Your air, heating, cooling, and then all those appliances. Pictured as induction, but there's also water heating and clothes drying incentives. And plus we've got EVs and EV charging, including tax rebate for the first time for used EVs. All now with income qualifications, but in many cases those EV tax credits will be transferable to the dealer. So it'll be like a discount right on the lot, just like we're talking about the value of upfront discounts for the other appliances. So I just wanted to mention bidirectional EV charging will also qualify, so that's kind of cool. And next slide. This is awful, but I took it from a policy brief that laid out side by side. The rebates on the left, that's the HERA, and the 25C tax credit on the right. Basically, think of it as your electrification, home electrification piggy bank. So the maximum amount on the left in the rebates is $14,000 for a household, and over on the right, $1,200 every year for 10 years, $12,000. Plus these other ones, and I pulled out notes about my favorite new appliance that I don't have yet, is the heat pump. I get to say the heat pump for the first time today, which love heat pumps. We could have a whole session about that. The heat pump water heater may qualify for a rebate of $1,750. It is an additional tax credit of $2,000 beyond that annual $1,200 that you have. At the same time, it's a qualifying appliance that you can get a electrical panel upgrade tax credit for up to $600. But here's where all the unknowns happen. Will these rebates and tax credits stack? Would you qualify for both? That'll be up to the states to decide. There may be some state-to-state variability. They can also decide what area median income means to them, whether it's state level or a larger swath. So anyway, rather than, and this is from the policy brief. I do have a copy of it if you want interest, but I've got some more user-friendly references in the next slide. Rewiring America are the official partners with the Department of Energy and the government for getting this information out to the public. They have an app, so as easy as putting it on the phone and plugging in some more details about your personal income, number of people in your household, zip code, and it will kind of flag all the things that you may qualify for, and is pretty deep and accurate on all those qualifying pieces. Oh yeah, what I didn't touch on the previous slide was that only the highest Energy Star appliances or heat pumps with the highest tier of energy efficiency will qualify. So lots of details to sort of be aware of. And then cleanenergy.gov was mentioned earlier, as well as the the ultimate guide. There are a few one-pagers, and this one-pager on the tax credits, there are some hard copies out in the lobby on that as a reminder. A good place to start. Of course, they have a companion rebate page, which broadly outlines it, no details yet. There's also a great starting point for looking at your EV tax credits and vehicles that qualify. And I'm actually skipping over EVs unless we want to come back to it in Q&A. But bottom line is you want to look at a VIN decoder to see if the particular vehicle you're looking at will qualify, because we could say make and model, but with the additional requirements that there be US assembly or components, some of the same models may or may not be assembled in the US, so just some extra things to... All right, and I also just recommend Consumer Reports. Lots of, always a good resource for getting information on appliances. So I recommend them, and they're up to date on their Inflation Reduction Act. But do be careful anytime you are looking at resources. Remember, this bill passed in August. If something hasn't been updated, look for something more recent, December, January updates. You'd want up-to-date information. So now, briefly, heat pumps. They are so efficient because they are not creating heat, they're moving it around. And I spelled this out. So even when it's cold outside, there is enough heat that these devices can capture to come in and warm your house. And it's a different kind of feel, and quite a bit of reading I recommend, and not all contractors are happy to recommend them. So do a little bit of homework so you can figure out whether a heat pump will work for you, and know that yes, it replaces your AC and your furnace, so don't be surprised at the sticker price, but there's $2,000 off for the heating and cooling heat pump, and know that there's also heat pumps for water heaters and heat pump clothes dryers, and you also see it as a feature on many electric vehicles as well to protect the battery life and give you extended battery life. So, yeah, I just put heat pumps, love them. Oh my God. And with all this electrification, I have to mention that, yes, there is some, we mentioned the tax credit that is available for an electrical panel. It is capped except if it's part of a solar, and I meant to look and see if this also includes geothermal. It's uncapped, so that might be the time you want to do it, is when you're doing that big project. But even if, and in many cases, there's not a tax credit for the upgrade you're looking at, sometimes it's just good new technology anyway. This is an illustration of a smart panel that will balance the loads. So maybe you don't need to upgrade the whole supply coming into your house if a smart panel can communicate with these smart appliances and make it all work. So I meant to come back and just cover that other whole category of rebates that is available under the homes. It's the Homeowner Managing Energy Savings Program. So if you're doing a major retrofit, you can get a large rebate if you're cutting your energy use by 35%, and some if you're reaching 15 to 20% energy savings. Basically, it's tied to the amount of energy savings achieved in the. So, where to start? There is that tax credit for $150 if you have tax liability. A great idea to get a starting point. Think about some weatherization. Some of that is DIY. Just know that $1,200 a year is limited to 2 $600 projects, and so but save all those receipts. Typically, a hot water heater or a furnace are replaced in an emergency, and that's going to be hard to do a whole switch from a gas-supplied appliance to an electrical one. So do some of the work now to figure it out, and research the installers. And as you're on this learning journey, some helpful organizations that can help you find a home energy audit company or navigate the solar installations. I did solar on my home with Solar United Neighbors, and they're also great advocates. We talked about community solar, and there's actually bills going through the General Assembly right now that I'm sure they're advocating on. And then look for the hashtag electrify everything. That's where a lot of the conversations are happening, and you can find a community of people on a similar path. And the Electric Vehicle Association of DC has terrific resources for researching electric vehicles. So I do have one more. You might another pitch for looking at the heat pump hot water heaters. It seems to be the most compared to the cost of the appliance and the amount of the rebates and tax credits available compared to the amount of energy they consume. Looks like a win-win for me. But maybe you can look at charts like this and figure out where in your own household it makes the most sense. And thank you. We have put many of our resources in this link tree. So that website is just a list of our top-level resources. It's a dynamic document we're continuing to update. That's my email. And we're also looking for more audiences to talk to. Green banks give me homeowners associations were certainly top of mind for getting this information out. But any other audiences, especially if we can have local officials who we can then say, when are we getting these rebates? How I'm ready to go on that. So, and again, last slide, I guess, just more about Citizens Climate Lobby and the work that we do. Looking for federal big solutions for climate. And actually, I did have one other thing is, in the words of our favorite climate advocate, Dr. Catherine Hayhoe, the best thing we can do is be talking about climate change. And now we've got a lot of great things to talk about. And I know, talk about plans for the spring. I'm planning some deep decarbonization. That's what we're doing here when we're turning off the gas in our house. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Meredith. And then I'm looking at Andrea. She's really in charge. What do you want to do? Want to come up next? Yes. That sounds good. I'm going to reiterate, talk about climate. I want to say there are many people who don't know that climate bill got passed. When I talk to people in my communities, they don't know, so keep talking about it. Thank you so much. Andrea, she's Executive Director of FACS. Let's give her a hand.
Well, that was a lot of information. I don't know about you, but when I listen to it all, I feel overwhelmed. And it makes sense because we really need to transform all of our society. And we just got the biggest climate investment from the federal government that we've ever seen. And it is overwhelming and exciting. And we need to work at the scale and pace that the science demands. So we all really do need to lean in and figure this out. But I don't know about you, but I'm just like, whoa. I want to talk, do a few logistics, a bit of gratitude, and then talk about next steps and how we can all work together going forward. So first of all, some logistics. Thank you for the people who are listening online. I hope that when we bring this part to a conclusion that you'll be able to then go into the Zoom and then meet with each other online. So hopefully, please switch over to Zoom after this. For the rest of us, we're going to be networking out there. We have some wonderful food, and one of the speakers had to leave, but the rest of us should be here, so you can visit. And I want to just introduce a few other key people that are here, so you can network with them as well. So first of all, we have a whole team from Fairfax County government. So I wondered if you all could just stand up and wave to everybody. So they're going to be wonderful partners in this work, and thank you for coming today. And then I wanted to introduce our board of directors. So if you all could just stand up. So they're wonderful to network to, and I just want to say thank you to all of you for all you do. Okay, I also wanted to thank the speakers. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today and share your knowledge. And I especially want to say thank you, Josh, for running all over the room and giving everyone the mic. I really appreciate it. And your beautiful centering of us in prayer meant so much. I also want to thank our sponsors. So next slide. Mom's Organic has just been a long-time supporter of ours, and we're so grateful to them. And it's a wonderful market if you've never shopped there. Sandbox Financial Partners, this is their second year supporting us, and we're so grateful. Will, if you're out there. Thank you so much to the church, Mount Vernon. That's where we are today. and thank you, Chris, and to all the church members. We're so grateful. And then finally, we have yummy food from Wegmans, and thank you, Rick, for getting that. And I just want to say, FACS is a tiny little nonprofit with huge power because of all of you. You have, we're an alliance of amazing faith communities and members of faith and people who don't identify as a member of faith. Just as we're so big, and yet we're so small. And there's so much going on in the climate space now, and we need more capacity. So I just wanted to ask you to think, if you know any corporate sponsors who might want to support this work, if you know other people we can bring in, and anybody who might want to also financially support us, it would be wonderful, because we do need to grow in order to meet the challenge that we're facing. And then finally, I want to just thank all of you who showed up today, because you are our power, and we're really grateful. Larry? Yeah, we can make these slides available. I actually haven't had that discussion with the speakers. I don't think there's anything proprietary. I'm getting nods from them. So yes, we'll make that for sure. Okay, so the biggest thing I want to say is that power goes to the prepared, and power goes to the people who show up. And then there's all the vulnerable people who can't show up that we need to be thinking about and helping. So as I talk through the next few slides very quickly, just think about that. And we basically, for all these investments to work, we need doors to be opened into the faith communities to get the work done, into our homes to get the work done. And it's a lot. It's a lot to understand, and we have a lot of work to do together. So the purpose of what I'm going to tell you about next steps is to open that dialogue with each other and try to get all that work going. So next slide. We're launching 5 new campaigns, overwhelming, but we have a lot to do. And these were crafted around thinking about how faith communities work and kind of the different groups of people and the different things that they're interested in a faith community. So next slide. So the first one is solar sanctuaries. This is a campaign that's already going, and it's really working well. And if your faith community doesn't know about it yet, we'd really love to talk to you about it, because it's smooth. This is one we really know what we're doing. So the idea is to put solar and battery backup on a faith community so that in a time when the power goes out, you can get off the grid, have power in the building, and help especially the vulnerable people in the community. There's many people, babies, the elderly, who can't regulate heat well in their bodies, and they need to be able to cool off, for example. But like, say, a rural church might not even have water if they don't have electricity, because their well needs water. So there's so many reasons this is important. And we have a group of national partners that are helping us get this done. And again, we just have to start that dialogue with your faith community and open the door and get going. By the way, energy efficiency is a huge part of this. I want to shout out to Neely. She's always reminding me to say that. Okay, so next one. Okay, a big part of faith communities is our kitchens and what we do with the kitchens, all the, the food we eat together. So this one's going to be everything from energy, climate-friendly appliances like induction stoves instead of the gas stove, but also our food choices and all the wonderful work that faith communities do on food rescue. And it goes on and on what we can do in this campaign. Next one. Then Tree of Life, we've changed this. We had a Tree of Life campaign. This is a little different flavor. This is really about the grounds of faith communities. Some of our faith communities have literally acres of ground. And what could we do on our properties to create a better habitat for wildlife and have more native plants and get rid of invasive species and compost and all those good things we can do with the land. Oh, and maybe have less lawn and take better care of it. Okay. Next. This one is about how we move around. So we all have so many parking lots, and in this Northern Virginia kind of sprawling area, we have to drive. But there's a lot of people who can't drive, who don't have that choice, and they need to have a safe way to get around. And this is such a challenge in our area. This is my personal, deep one in my heart. So we need your help with this, and more on that. And I want to just say Fairfax County is doing some amazing work around this that I really want us all to support. So stay tuned. Okay. And then, but most of us have to drive, and so we need to clean up our cars. And also, maybe we could get to the point where we have a lot of electric bikes around, I don't know. But anyway, this campaign is all about electrifying transportation and reducing our emissions. And next, I think that's the last one. Okay, and I just wanted to do a shout out to Fairfax County. They have invited us to be one of the first 2 pilots to implement the community-wide energy and climate action plan, mouthful. And we are stepping up with these 5 campaigns, but I want to just say we want to do it all around Northern Virginia, all around Virginia. So this is not just about Fairfax County, but because of this partnership with the government, which we're so grateful for, we're going to, I think, really be pushing ahead in Fairfax. And so the next step, if you can hit the arrow, we're going to do a meeting every single month to convene around these ideas and campaigns and whatever we figure out about the federal funding that's come out. Things are going to be moving fast, so we want to have this space to get together. So we're going to do every other month at 10 a.m. on Wednesday and every other month at 5 p.m. I might have that wrong. Yeah, 5 p.m. on Tuesdays. But anyway, the first one's going to be February 8th, just a few days at 10 a.m. Please come. We're going to talk slower through all these campaigns. And the first one, we're going to concentrate on the solar sanctuaries campaign. And I'm hoping maybe I could have a couple of the pastors we're already working with there. We'll see. And then the next one, I don't know what we'll talk about. We'll choose whatever makes the most sense. But we'll be talking about these campaigns every single time. And this is a moment to bring other people in, to bring your neighbors in, to bring other faith members in, your pastor in, to have these conversations. And I know that county staff is going to show up, at least one of you is going to try to show up at each of these meetings. So they'll also be hearing the questions and the ideas. And the most important thing I just want to say, again, this is overwhelming, but whatever really moves you, now's the time to grab it and lean in, figure it out, and help the rest of us understand it and bring us along with you, because we've got to do this fast. And this is a moment with these investments that we've never seen before, and we want to make sure this money gets spent really well and that we solve the climate crisis together. So thank you for being here today. And I hope you all meet each other, and I hope you can show up to these meetings in the future. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Josh to close us out.
All right. Questions or networking? No questions? All right.
My question, when the first speaker talked about the EPA grants and the federal grants, my question to Fairfax County or to people that know the Dillon Rule well in Virginia is, will Fairfax County need to get permission from the state legislature to apply for those grants or not? The answer is
That's a great question, and it's good to know that there's an audience that is aware of the Dillon Rule and its restrictions on local governments. The good news is we've been watching a growing number of webinars and so forth for clarity on the federal grants and rebates. And we're confident that all Fairfax and other localities will have access to these grant opportunities. And I'll just add that one of the roles that I think the county government is going to be looking to serve, and also the Green Bank when it launches, is we realize that there is a ton of information and a lot to sort through on all these opportunities. And so I think it's incumbent on us in government to help provide some clarity, and at the risk of over a little bit of hand-holding, because there's a lot to sort out with all of this. But there are some restrictions, as there always are with federal money. But from what I've seen, Dillon rule is, and the constraints on local government is not one of them.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Susan. I have a nuts and bolts 101 question. What are we doing? What's the process for EVs that have gone dead? What do we do with recycling them? I mean, this is going to be a biggie, and I hear a lot of people talking about what they're made of and how those create other issues too. So is that something we can talk about here?
I have an answer on that. I've thought about that a lot, and some of the other speakers might have thoughts, but cars are not clean. I would call it clean cars. It's like cleaner cars. They have a lot of embedded carbon emissions just to make them. And the batteries, what are we going to do with batteries? And I know there's a lot of smart people thinking about this. But the bottom line is cars are not the cleanest way to move around. The cleanest way for us to move around is to walk, to bike, and to take transit. And that's why we have the FACS Transit Corps. And we have a lot of work we need to do in Fairfax County and the rest of Northern Virginia to make it safe to be able, and convenient to be able to do that. So that's my biggest answer, is that we really need to lean into those other forms of transportation, and our elected officials need to hear about it, and they don't know where the danger is. They need our eyes and our feedback on that. And personally, it hurts me to watch the children, people of lower income, walking and biking in really dangerous places. So if you see it, give the feedback to the elected officials. They need to hear from us about that. That's my biggest answer. Anybody got anything specific on cars? You mean all electrifying everything?
Content is so valuable that recycling is going to be very high. The content of those batteries is very high value, so the recycling will happen, and the EV batteries will have a second life. Even after they're no longer good for propelling a vehicle, they can still be used as a battery for other uses. So. Good question, and you do see a lot of pushback on that. I understand that.
I'll just add, one of the areas that we didn't talk about that I mentioned in the climate bill, was that there's a number of manufacturing incentives in there. This whole area of critical minerals, but also advanced batteries and advanced battery recycling is all part of, I think, where a lot of that push is heading. And I don't say that to say it's solved, right, or figured out, and you're asking the right questions, but we got to come at this from all the angles: private sector, what the government's doing, putting people to, creating economic opportunity in that whole recycling market as well.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Bob Tolf. I am a resident of McLean, Virginia, and so it's good to see Fairfax County representatives here. And I may have some questions for you afterwards. But I have a simple question for Meredith, and that is you had mentioned that the home energy audit would be covered as part of the Inflation Reduction Act. Is that correct?
Available as a tax credit for $150,
Okay.
but through the LEAP organization, there may be free
Okay.
ones available for other.
Okay, so
Groups?
if I wanted to have a home energy audit today, I could reach out to somewhere. I could talk to you,
Yeah.
and then it would probably cost, how much? Would it cost $150 so I'd have the total cost covered?
Well, there
Or
are-
how much does a home energy audit cost?
They probably start at 150, but also on the DIY end, you can, from many libraries, get a infrared heat sensor, works with a phone app, so some DIY stuff. I've had a basic level one that I got for free, and subsequent to that, improved insulation. But I think I'm going to be looking at doing a higher level one, they call the blower test, to get my house sized for the right kind of heat pump. So depending on what your immediate plan is, you could probably make do with a lower cost, fewer bells and whistles one. But I believe that tax credit, $150, you could be able to do two. It'll reset. It's not one and done.
I'll just say, and Larry, correct me if I'm wrong, but Bull Run Unitarian Universalist bought an infrared detector, and we loan it out to congregants to use. And so I think we ask for a donation, but it's a win-win.
That's a great solution. I'm glad to hear. Okay, I'm going to give you and then I'm going over there. I swear you're next.
I'm Linda Bellotti with St. Peter's in the Woods, and I was just wondering, have you all? I'm so excited about everything I'm hearing today, especially about the Green Bank, and it seems to have some aspects to me of venture capital, except for on a nonprofit sort of way, because you're leveraging money from corporations and other investors, and then making more money on it. And I think that's really exciting. So the other thing is this, in terms of gas transition, I mean, are you really educating people? Because I have gas in my home, and I just got a hot water heater, and I was tempted to go electric, but I didn't know enough about it, and it was, of course, the hot water heater went out. And so, I mean, but, you know, there's a lot of people in older homes that have gas, and is there a lot of education going to be happening to try to transition people to, you know, to heat pumps, which aren't really as cozy and warm usually as the gas in terms of the feeling of the heat, unless you get it exactly sized to your house properly. Yeah.
Maybe I could ask a question back to the audience to get everybody involved here on that before Meredith and Andrea, anybody else, Josh wants to answer it. So let me ask you. Have you heard anything have you been hearing in the last month, have you heard about the indoor air health impacts of natural gas? Yes, if yes, there is. So for folks online, we have about, well over 90% of the room, of a very crowded room, congratulations for turning out, raised their hands. And just a similar question, because I'm curious on this, that's why I asked. Do you know more today about that than, were you as concerned, say, 2 years ago as you are today? No hands, a lot of handshaking. So I think, to me, that's really fascinating, right? This is new science. Well, I don't know how much is new science, but I think it's been known for some time, but there's been a lot of science coming out lately that's clearly getting through, and it's causing us to all think about it in a different way. Natural gas is the leading cause of climate change as coal emissions continue to decrease alongside oil, as we know. And just this week, I'm getting on a pedestal now, so I gotta be careful. But just yesterday, I was reading about some members of Congress who's talking about their climate strategy, which is about more gas. And gas is not clean. When you look at the methane emissions that happen on climate change, when you look at the indoor air, that's causing me, like many of you, to rethink the use of natural gas in our houses. We have to take another look at that, and you all have, by showing up here today, and this theme that kept coming up again and again of having conversations. You are the ambassadors of knowledge in this case, because you have quicker access to maybe paying more attention to some of the scientific studies that are coming out and some of the other pieces here and talking to your friends and stuff. But as I said to people, it shouldn't matter whether you come from where in the country you live, whether you come from a red house politically, a blue house, or a purple house. Everybody cares about the kids, the air their kids breathe. The air your parents are breathing, the air that you're breathing. So hopefully it's going to be a new age of awareness on that. Your question was kind of different, which is what are the plans to educate folks? And I don't know if others have anything to add more directly on it, but I think it's really encouraging to hear how aware you are and how engaged you are. So thank you for that.
Real quick before we go to the next question, our folks online are requesting us, we're doing this Q&A, that they can go to their breakout rooms so they can start discussing things just on time. Are we okay with that? Yeah. We're okay?
Actually, I would like to ask a question that maybe someone here could address, which is I forget how many $1 billion is in the IRAs. Is it 260 billion? Is that the correct number? Anyways,
the 260 billion-ish was for the tax credits, but it's $369 billion for climate overall.
So $400 billion, and Virginia probably will get a portion of that, is going to get a portion of that. So what, with all this extra money that will be in the economy of the built environment and whatnot, what is keeping contractors and whatnot from just raising the prices so that the consumer ends up still paying the same amount? I've gotten some feedback from solar installers that the tax credits already have done that. Installer prices are higher. It's just the natural way things work. So we're doing a lot on the supply side that is providing more money. What are we doing to hopefully see that the dollar goes a long way?
That's a great question, and I'd say it's important to, in addition to raising the question, and undoubtedly there are going to be fluctuations in some of the market effects that you're talking about. But one of the really encouraging things to me about this plan is that this is a multi-year plan covering both tax credits and some of the programs we're talking about. There are many years in the future, not just what's happening this year. So that kind of a signal into the marketplace that America's committed to investing in clean energy, both on the consumer side through tax credits and on the manufacturing side to get supply chains moving. There's a lot of domestic manufacturing tax credits in there and incentives as well. I think that's going to provide a really strong signal, so you'll see both supply and demand growing together. Now, that isn't saying that this isn't an issue, particularly. I don't know what happens in the EV market in the near term. There's a lot of fighting going on right now about how this plays out over a period of months on EVs. In an environmental scale, that's not really the issue. The issue is, as private investment dollars and government investment dollars flow, are they flowing to a North Star of a clean energy future, or are they flowing backwards, right, towards more infrastructure built the same with dirty fuels? So I think that's the encouraging piece, but there could be some real near-term issues there.
Are we training enough electricians? Oh, and tell your friends to be on the lookout for great deals on gas appliances, and don't be tempted.
That's brilliant. Better said. And one of the real breakthroughs in this bill was the fact that the tax credits are tiered towards both domestic manufacturing and towards living wage and other requirements towards for how they're manufactured and the jobs they provide, so that we're actually growing a good and sustainable job-based and manufacturing base to help make this reality, both economically and environmentally.
Okay, next question's here.
Hi, I'm Arvel Garland from Quiet Clean Nova. Sorry. This is very interesting, all the various devices that are being electrified, but there's one industry that is falling through the crack. We're all talking about our gas stoves. What about lawn landscape equipment? They were responsible in 2018 for 3 billion gallons of gas. They use a substantial amount of fossil fuels, plus they emit enormous amounts of pollution because they do not have catalytic converters. The two-stroke engines of the typical leaf blowers expose workers, low-income immigrants usually, to horrendous levels of carcinogenic pollution, plus people trying to recuperate from surgery in their homes. Their homes are invaded the entire day by loud noise they cannot get away with. So this, I don't see this in CPAC. I don't see none of the landscape equipment is being addressed. And somebody like this, he can't get any, he's a solar, this guy is Littlefoot, he does solar electric, he does solar landscaping, everything with solar panels on his truck. He cannot get financing, and he's overbooked. He won't even take people on his waiting list. So I think that the landscape industry needs to be brought to the table. Thank you.
Yep, join our Tree of Life campaign, for sure.
And we just narrowly missed out having an e-bike tax credit. It was in the legislation until the last rounds of negotiation, but it's still something we could ask our state government to implement.
I just wanted to say we're 5 minutes to 3, and we said we were going to wrap up at 3, but the church we're not on a time frame that we need to get out the door. But maybe, is there any more questions? Okay, one more question, and then let's go party.
Is there anything in the IRA, and I've not seen it, for mass transit or bike lanes? Because in Fairfax County, it's not a scientific survey, but we're just paving the county. It looks like the beltway keeps getting bigger and bigger. So what about mass transit, biking? Because ultimately, cars are still a problem.
Yeah. Did you want to tackle this at all, Meredith? So, okay, that's awesome. The climate bill was part of a number of bills that were passed. So the short answer is that the government has not transformed how it's doing transportation. I will say that some steps were taken that are positive last year in a different bill, which was the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and it's the kind of spending package where some smaller wins get overlooked, but they're significant. There's actually that's where you see an increase in some of the mass transit funding, where all that federal funding flows through. But there's also a new program that ties a significant pot of federal money to states based on greenhouse gas performance and planning. It's a new venture. I think it's going to be at the vanguard of one of the most important transformations that has to happen in the coming years, which is that climate change gets incorporated into all the decisions, right, that governments are making and how they spend money, so we don't have money at cross purposes with each other, which is what we have right now, particularly in the transportation type of arena. So it's a start. Kudos to those who helped make that happen. But mass transit levels should certainly be higher, and more of that should be happening.
Okay, we're going to end this portion with a song from Josh.
All right, so we're going to close this portion and get to the networking and luncheon. So if everybody can just stand up. I know we've been singing for a long time. We're going to sing a song. Some of y'all know it from church. Come and go with me to that land. And I think there's a slide with some words on there just for those. Is there a slide there? No? No, there's not. All right, cool. I'm going to sing it. That's why it's real easy, though. All right, we're just gonna sing a few verses, okay? Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. Climate justice in the land. Climate justice in that land. Climate justice in that land. Climate justice in that land where I'm bound. Climate justice in that land. Climate justice in that land. Climate justice in that land where I'm bound. Come and go with me, real easy. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. All right, amen. All right, go in peace. Thank you.